Hello, welcome back to Grow with Alan, episode 3. Today we're going to be talking about the allium family. That is onions, shallots, garlic. I've got some Solent white garlic, mystery onions. I apologise that these are mystery onions. My school kids' they've got a gardening club and they asked for some seeds. So they gave them half my onion set, unfortunately a bit with the label, but not to worry, the instructions for growing them are much the same. And finally, shallots. These are shallot Picasso, which I grew down at Big Allotment last year. They grew brilliantly, so I'm going to grow the same this year. Now, let's crack on, I suppose. Yeah, let's get on with the garlic. The garlic that I'm going to grow, Solent white, it's just garlic I say from last year. I don't know about you, we're not big eaters of garlic. Maybe that's from commuting to London too much and sitting next to people on the train who've had too much garlic the night before. It does put me off a little bit, but it's nice to have a bit. If you read up in the books for growing garlic, what it'll say to you is that you should make sure it goes in the ground when the ground's nice and cold, below 5 degrees for a good stint, because it stimulates growth. But what I realised last year as part of that, starting off late at the end of April at Big Allotment, was actually there are no really set rules for gardening, and actually you can break some of those rules and get away with it. So I planted garlic without it being in cold ground, starting it off at the end of April last year, and it was absolutely fine. So starting off the garlic now as opposed to November will be fine. I had an email this week from Alice, who lives in Maine, saying that her garlic, which she planted in November, is currently under 20 centimetres or 20 inches, I suppose, in the States, of snow. So, that's fine. Equally, it's fine to put it in now. So let's crack on with that. I'm just going to zoom in so you can see what you're doing. And see what I'm doing. See what you're doing. I'm doing all the hard work here. Okay, I reckon that's about it, isn't it? This is the soil that had the spuds grown in it last year. It's had a little bit of compost put on it, but nothing much else. And with the garlic, I'm literally just going to, let's see if you can see my hand there. There it is. Let's move a bit that way. Oh, there we are. That's better, isn't it? So I'm literally just going to push it into the ground. The flat side at the bottom is where the roots are going to come out. The tip is where the leaves will come out. I'm going to push it quite deep compared with onions, so it's just covered, because that helps to keep them in the ground, the birds from pulling it out. And garlic does go a little bit deeper than the onions and shallots. And I'm going to try and space it. There's a random piece of stick here, so that it's wide enough for a hoe to go between the rows, because that makes it really easy for weeding. Sometimes you see people who put things really close together, and it makes it really hard to maintain, whereas I can pop out here and use the hoe just to shovel between the rows and it'll all be fine. So the garlic literally is just pushed in about, there's a big stone there, we'll get rid of that one, just over a hoe width part, just in like that, just in a nice square right across. So that's all I'm going to do with the garlic. Now let's just zoom out a little bit here and just talk a little bit about, there we are. It takes a while to do this, doesn't it? You need to speed the tech up. Let's talk a little bit about the shallots and the onions. The shallots and the onions, they get pushed in the soil in a similar way, but not quite as deeply. So if I take this shallot here, what I'm going to do is just leave it so that just the tip is visible there like that. And that's exactly the same process for onions. So again, just push it in so the tip is just visible. There's a good chance that your feathered friends are going to come along and they're going to pull a few of these out, so check every few days until the roots have begun to get themselves in there. And that's literally all you'll need to do for onions and garlic and shallots. Just leave them there until they've sprouted up in the summer, made your garden look lovely and green and lush, and then they begin to die back. And once they begin to die back, that's a good sign that it's time to lift them and let the bulbs dry out. Okay, next up, let's catch up on the things that I planted 2 weeks ago in the greenhouse. So a couple of weeks ago, week 1, we started out planting some tomatoes up and a few other things. And amazingly, here's what we got so far. You remember the yellow pear tomatoes? I put two seeds in each of these pots because they're quite small. I'll move that a bit closer so you can see it. But they're coming on really nicely. These are the Sweet Million. There we are. Already up like that. I'm just going to grow them on like this for a couple more weeks. There's plenty of room in these pots. Actually, they can stay in there for quite a while before they go into something larger. And the Rudbeckia is also up and making an appearance already, which is quite surprising actually. It's been quite cold. They're tiny little plants at this moment in time, so I'm just going to let them stay in here until they're big enough to handle, and then I'll transplant them out either into separate pots or possibly into one tray. But they're very delicate plants, so you can only really handle by the leaf rather than the stalk or the root, so they need to grow on a little bit more. But that's quite exciting. Not everything is doing quite as well as I'd hoped. The sweet peas, Beaujolais, like its namesake, not looking terrific, frankly. So yeah, we're going to have to wait and see what happens with those. But yeah, all in all though, that's not a bad start at this time of year. What I've done with a few of the tomato pots that haven't come up so far is I've changed the soil in there and put some more seeds in. It's important not to be tempted just to put a new seed into exactly the same soil without giving it a good mix around, because you can get damping off, and damping off is where a fungus attacks the little seedlings and they just fall over and die off basically, which is annoying. Yeah, there we are. And I've actually been quite busy and done a few other things as well, in that I had a lot of seeds left over from last year at big allotment. No, not in that one. I had these seeds here. There we are. So I had some purple Prince zinnias, so I've sown some of those. Some more Rudbeckia, Marrakesh Market. 2 lots of Cosmos, Rabenza and Candy Stripe. They grow very easily, these. So all I've done is, in fact, let me just stand up a moment, shade, is to, where is it? I can find them in a moment. There we are. So they've all been sown exactly the same way. I've just taken a small tray like this and just sprinkled the seeds. I put half and half here of the 2 different types of Cosmos, about maybe 3 mil below the surface. Just damp the soil down, and then I'm going to put that in one of these little pots like this and smuggle it into the house in the hope that Mrs. T won't notice. Mother's Day tomorrow, so I better be good, I suppose. Well, it's not up to me to be good, I know, it's the kids' idea, it's their mother, they've got to be good, but even so, I expect she won't be too pleased if I smuggle too much more into the house at this moment in time. One final thing today, what should we do today? I know what we'll do, we'll sow some leeks since we're onto the allium family. I don't know about you, but when you go to those autumn shows, there's always someone there with huge, great leeks, and the truth of it is, it's just about getting them sown early enough in the year, and that's the real difference between success and failure. So here's one I prepared earlier. Let me just check you can see this okay. Yes, you can. Very good, very good. Right, and I'm going to grow some Autumn Giant 2 leeks, which the ones you saw me waving around as pointers actually last week. And the key to good leeks is to get them started early. They're really slow, probably one of the slowest vegetables of all to get going. I see my daughter coming down the garden, so I suspect we're about to get disruption at the moment. Tiny little seeds, look exactly like the sort of things you see on your on a naan bread or something like that, and literally just sprinkle them over the surface of some compost like this. In fact, I'm going to sow quite a few of these because it's always good to have a few extra. Sprinkle them over the top like that, and then I've just got some fresh compost here, which I'm just going to dust a little bit over the top. Just a bit like that. There it is. Press that down a little bit. I'll give that a little sprinkle of water, and then that can just sit in the greenhouse here, and that'll take maybe 2 or 3 weeks to germinate. They're quite slow, and it just looks like little pieces of grass getting going in the first few weeks, but then they'll just grow on in that tray until they're able to be separated out, spread out a little bit before going into their final growing positions. Lastly this week, I want to talk to you about building a chicken run. A little bit off subject, but I know lots of people often grow vegetables and keep chickens as well, so I thought I'd just show you what I've done back here in our garden. Now, I don't know about you, but I quite like really nice fresh eggs in the morning. In fact, It's quite a nice thing to be able to wander down the garden and collect one of these. Bit of a giant egg actually today, there we are. And we've had chickens for maybe 2 or 3 years. That's not very smart, is it? The egg is just rolled into the middle of the run. I've got to try and retrieve that in a minute. Anyway, so we got chickens about 2 or 3 years ago, and I wanted to create an area for them that they could freely roam around, but in safety. We've got a lot of red kites around here, and we've also got foxes. I've seen them in the garden. We've got badgers actually who come through this garden as well, so it needs to be quite secure. So I've used quite a fine gauge wire, which I got from a farm supplier in Devon. In fact, I'll put a link to a blog post I wrote on how to build a chicken run just below this video, so you can actually just click onto that and have a look at it. But what we've ended up with here was a frame where this wire goes about, I don't know, about that much down into the soil, so that there's always you know, even if the fox decides to have a good scrabble about, they're not actually going to be able to get in there and get to the chickens as well. So the other thing I've done is put a little door in here, so it's very easy to get to the food, to take the food out at night if you want to, in case you want to make sure you don't attract any rats and things like that. And I've also made sure that the hen house itself is on hard standing, so you can wander down here, or I get the kids to wander down here actually, and bribe them for with their pocket money. They've got to earn it, haven't they? And so you can just go down here and collect the eggs without actually getting your feet dirty, really. In terms of choosing the hen house, there's lots and lots of cheap wooden ones around. There's also some extraordinarily expensive plastic ones around which you can buy. We went for sort of a bit of a middle of the road plastic thing made out of recycled plastic, and it's brilliant. I've got to be honest, we've had it 3 years now. Really easy to maintain, takes a couple of moments to clean. The whole roof comes off just to clean the thing out, very easy, and it works really well. The chickens can get out to a small run at the front here, so they've got plenty of space. They're perfectly secure, and crucially, they're not running all over our garden as they were when we first got them, pooing all over the grass, getting on the children's shoes. In fact, when we were having a barbecue, the white one here even tried to sort of jump up on the barbecue, which would have been great if it was plucked and jointed, but maybe not when you want it to lay some eggs. So look, I'll put a link to the blog post, and yeah, have a read if you're interested in getting chickens. Great animals to have. You can feed them all your veg scraps and you get something in return. And brilliantly, when you go on holiday, your neighbours don't mind looking after them because they get the eggs. Right, well, that's pretty much it for this week. It's a shorter video because I've got a few other things I need to get done this weekend. But as ever, if you've got any questions, send them in. Hope you're finding it useful. See you soon.